The music industry is accustomed to disruption, but it usually arrives with a deafening roar. It looks like a viral hit, a sudden stadium sellout, or a new genre taking over the airwaves. But the most dangerous shifts, the ones that actually rewrite the rules of engagement, rarely happen loudly. They happen in the fine print. They happen in the quiet decisions made behind closed doors. And right now, the biggest threat to the traditional infrastructure of global pop isn't another K-pop giant with unlimited budget. It isn't a Western superstar with a massive marketing machine. It is 5 artists from the Philippines who decided that signing a contract wasn't enough. They decided to build a system. We are talking about SB19. But more importantly, we are talking about what they represent to the entrenched power structures of the music business. This isn't just a story about a boy band navigating fame. This is a case study on control. It is a lesson in ownership. And for the legacy labels watching from the high-rises of Los Angeles and New York, it is a source of quiet, strategic anxiety. Today, we are stripping away the performance to look at the machinery. We are breaking down why SB19's independent model isn't just an alternative path, it is a direct challenge to the old industry model. And once you understand the mechanics of what they have built, you will understand why the traditional system may never look the same again. To understand the disruption, you must first respect the machine they are bypassing. For decades, the music industry has operated on a single, unshakable equation. The traditional record label system, think of the giants like Universal, Sony, and Warner, was built on a core principle that governed everything: control equals security. This wasn't about greed, it was about necessity. In a pre-digital world, the barriers to entry were physical and financial. To succeed, an artist needed physical albums manufactured in factories. They needed trucks to distribute them globally. They needed relationships with radio station directors to get airtime. They needed millions of dollars in upfront capital to fund tours and promotions. Without a label, global success wasn't just difficult, it was functionally impossible. Because the labels held the keys to the gates, they dictated the terms. They financed the artist, yes. But in exchange, they owned the masters. They controlled the distribution channels. They handled the marketing narrative. And, crucially, they took the majority share of the revenue. The artist provided the talent. The label provided the existence. That was the deal. But history has a way of rendering old contracts obsolete. The digital revolution didn't just change how we listen to music, it broke the physical supply chain that gave labels their leverage. Streaming replaced manufacturing. Social media replaced traditional PRs, direct-to-fan access replaced the radio gatekeepers. The walls guarding the castle fell down years ago. But most artists kept acting like they were still standing. That is where SB19 enters the conversation. They didn't just walk through the open gate. They stopped looking at the castle entirely and decided to build their own infrastructure. This brings us to the architecture of 1Z Entertainment. When most artists speak about going independent, they usually mean they are leaving a major label to sign a smaller distribution deal, or perhaps they are managing themselves with a small team. It is often a move born of necessity or rebellion. SB19 did something fundamentally different. They didn't just leave a system, they constructed one. Establishing 1Z Entertainment wasn't a vanity project. It was an act of architectural defiance. Instead of renting distribution channels, borrowing marketing power, or depending on the goodwill of executives, they brought the entire operation in-house. They established internal production capabilities. They took control of fan mobilization. They secured their own branding rights. They locked down equity ownership. This distinction is critical. When an artist leaves a label but still relies on external agencies for every move, the industry still has hooks in them. The industry controls the relationships, the capital, and the network. But SB19 structured their system so that they didn't need permission to move. That is unsettling for the old guard. The traditional industry relies on artists being dependent. When an entity like 1Z Entertainment proves that an artist can be self-sufficient, Not just creatively, but operationally, it suggests that the label's role is no longer essential. It is optional. And billion-dollar industries do not like being optional. But the real leverage here isn't just in management. It is in ownership. Let's talk about masters. In the traditional deal structure, the artist rarely owns their recordings. The label retains ownership of the master files. This means that long after the artist has retired, the label continues to profit. The catalog becomes corporate property. An asset on a balance sheet that has nothing to do with the creator. The artist earns a percentage, but the label holds the wealth. Now, imagine the alternative. Imagine an artist who keeps creative control, retains master ownership, holds the rights to the brand name, and keeps the majority of the revenue. That is not just independence. That is leverage. This is the nightmare scenario for the legacy model. When artists realize they can fund projects through direct fan demand, when they can utilize streaming analytics themselves, and when they can monetize their work directly without a middleman taking the lion's share, the power dynamic inverts. SB19 represents a shift where the artist is no longer an employee of the system. They are the system. Ownership creates a safety net that no contract can offer. If you own the masters, you own your history. If you own the brand, you own your future. Traditional labels are built on the assumption that they will own both. SB19 has proven that you don't need to surrender either to have a global impact. And then, there is the strategy. Most observers miss the brilliance of SB19's growth curve because they are looking at the wrong map. The standard playbook for any non-Western act is to seek validation from the West immediately. The goal is always to break America. Artists dilute their sound, switch to English immediately, and chase US trends, hoping to catch the ear of a Western executive. SB19 didn't chase Western validation. They prioritized Asia. This wasn't an accident. It was a calculation. The Asian music market is massive, rapidly expanding, and culturally distinct. By focusing on building a regional foundation first, SB19 strengthened their loyalty at home and in neighboring markets. They built a cultural positioning that was authentic rather than performative. This move reshaped their trajectory. While other artists burned out trying to crack the US radio code, SB19 was solidifying a base that couldn't be taken away. Traditional labels thrive when artists are desperate for global expansion support. They step in as the saviors who can bridge the gap to the West. But when an artist builds regional dominance first, when they prove profitability in their own backyard, and when they control their own audience data, they don't approach the negotiation table with a begging bowl. They approach it from a position of strength. By the time the West started paying attention, SB19 didn't need them to survive. They only needed them to scale. That creates a very different kind of negotiation. It is the difference between asking for a favor and proposing a partnership. This brings us to the engine that powers this entire machine, the fan economy. In the boardrooms of major labels, fans are viewed as consumers. They are metrics to be targeted with ad spend. The label pours money into radio campaigns, paid playlist placements, and billboard ads, hoping to convert passive listeners into buyers. It is a high-cost, high-waste model. SB19 operates on a completely different economic model. They don't rely on casual listeners. They operate on mobilized fandom economics. Their fan base does not just consume content. They amplify it. They stream strategically. They purchase deliberately. They support brand launches with the coordination of a marketing firm. This reduces the need for massive marketing budgets. Why spend millions on advertising when your audience creates the momentum organically? Traditional labels depend on heavy spending to manufacture hype. SB19's system activates organic momentum. This results in lower costs, higher loyalty, and significantly better profit margins. When you can generate global impact without the massive budget of a major label, you change the financial reality of the music business. You prove that money isn't the only currency that matters. Dedication is a currency. Organization is a currency. And SB19 has tapped into a reserve of value that traditional accounting methods struggle to quantify. Then, consider the speed of execution. We must discuss the concept of agility. In the traditional system, a release schedule is a bureaucratic nightmare. There are meetings about the meetings. There are approvals required from legal, from marketing, from distribution, from executives who may not even understand the genre. Priorities shift. Innovative ideas die in email chains. The creative process is bottlenecked by the corporate process. SB19 controls the narrative. They control the messaging. They control the rollout timing. They control the creative direction. There is no corporate bottleneck. There is no boardroom delay. There are no external approval cycles that dilute the vision. In the digital era, where trends rise and fall in the span of days, agility is power. Large corporations are not built for agility, they are built for stability. They are ocean liners trying to turn in a canal. SB19 moves like a speedboat. They can pivot, react, and launch while the major labels are still scheduling the conference call. This speed of execution allows them to stay connected to their audience in real time, maintaining a pulse that corporate structures simply cannot replicate. So, why are the labels watching so closely? Let's be clear about one thing. Traditional labels are not afraid emotionally. They are not trembling at the sight of five guys dancing. They are strategically concerned. They are calculating the risk of contagion. The industry is watching because SB19 is a proof of concept. If this model proves scalable, if more artists follow this blueprint, the labels lose their strongest advantage, ownership leverage. That is the real threat. The industry can handle a successful independent artist. What it cannot handle is a successful independent system. If the blueprint creates a new standard, the old contracts become insults. The standard deal, where the label takes everything in exchange for a loan, stops making sense. This leads to a deep psychological shift in the market. SB19 represents proof. They are living evidence that a non-Western group, without the backing of the Big Three, without legacy infrastructure, can build a global presence independently. This matters because younger artists are watching.